Welcome to this Invigilation of Examinations training for students availing of disability support. This is a brief video to describe some support and guidance to invigilators to help you in invigilating examinations for disabled students in Trinity College Dublin. My name is Jared Gallagher and I'm delighted to talk to you today. In terms of an overview of today's session, we will begin by offering some general principles, explain reasonable accommodations, mention disability types, discuss the impact of disability on examination performance, reasonable accommodation examples, give an overview of some venue types, give you an indication of some circumstances that may arise, and give you some attributes of a good invigilator and what you should do if in doubt during an examination, how best to support and empower students to achieve success. Some general principles then for general support. Try to be calm, supportive, and if in doubt, ask something, try to help. Unless the request is unreasonable or will cause disruption or result in cheating, be sure to understand what the student is asking for and why they're asking for it before saying no, that it's not allowed. If you're in doubt about a student's request, you should consult with the Chief Invigilator or the exams office, who will in turn consult with the Disability Service as required. If you refuse a student's request and they show signs of not fully accepting this refusal, follow up with the Chief Invigilator or the exams office to make sure that you are offering appropriate support and also that you are comfortable with the decision you made. What is invigilation? Invigilation keeps watch over an exam, prevents cheating, provides disabled students with reasonable accommodations, and ensures fairness in the examinations. That's really facilitating the smooth running of examinations. Your role then is a dual role of invigilator and also to ensure that reasonable accommodations are provided. Examination accommodations are the most common accommodation and reasonable accommodation provided by Trinity Disability Service to disabled students in Trinity, and you're therefore tasked with the dual role of examination of the exam and the provision of accommodations. Just a brief overview of some of the disability types of students who are availing of disability. They include ADD, ADHD, autistic spectrum disorder, students who are blind or visually impaired, students who are deaf or hard of hearing, students with dyspraxia, students with mental health conditions, mental health difficulties, students with neurological conditions, physical disabilities, ongoing illnesses, specific learning difficulty, and speech language disabilities. So this is a brief overview of the 11 disability types typically students avail of support with. Now in Trinity College Dublin there are over 2,000 students availing of disability support, and examination accommodations are the most common reasonable accommodation provided by the disability support, and it is the most important accommodation provided because it will impact on a student's progression within the university or in that college. Um, so possible impact of disability and an examination then. A disability or effective medication can slow down the cognitive function, reduce concentration and memory and stamina. Some disabilities may need assistive technology, uh, for exam papers in alternative formats. Some students cannot write and may use, for example, voice recognition software or may type their exams if they can't write for a long period. A large venue can sometimes be intimidating for students ADD, ADHD, or students with anxiety, and so they may be accommodated in a low distraction venue. And we'll speak more about that a little bit later. Examples of reasonable accommodations include extra time. This is most common and it's typically between 10 and 15 minutes per hour. A disclosure of disability sticker, which means that marking guidelines will apply in an examination. The use of a computer, a low distraction venue, use of specialist software, for example, dictation or magnification software, an individual venue, use of a scribe, most typically now at dictation software in place of scribe, um, large or electronic paper. Typically, this is A3 on a USB. Some students then, particularly students with type 1 diabetes, will use their phone during exams. So students uh, do so by using a phone app. Students who require this accommodation are provided with a clear folder from the disability service to identify that they are availing of this approved accommodation, and they place the phone on the desk. Students are advised to place their phone on silent mode uh, before bringing the phone into the exam, and if the phone does does ring, uh, students are asked to switch it off, and it may be removed for the duration of the exam. Venue types then. Examinations accommodations are not provided in the main venue, typically the RDS. They're typically in the arts building, sometimes Goldsmith Hall. PC venues then are at the east end for students using a PC. Low distraction venues are more common and they are now generally in the arts building, but maybe in other venues across the campus, depending on availability. Individual venues can be used for students who use a scribe or voice recognition software, or students who require very individualized support. Low distraction venues. Just to give you a brief understanding of the low distraction venue, low distraction venues are for students who find the large venue difficult to cope with. So aim to reduce the visual and auditory distractions within this venue when invigilating these exams. Typically, they're based in the arts building and have sometimes been based in South uh, Leinster Street. It's really about you cannot control all the noise in the venue, so students can bring earplugs into the exam if needs be, the noise cancelling headphones. But we do ask that noise is kept to a minimum, particularly in these venues. Uh, so, uh, so if a student is using a computer venue, a low distraction computer venue, they may be in a room on their own or with one other person. Please be conscious if you are using computers as well. If you're using any devices to assist you with the invigilation of uh, the exams, just be conscious of the noise in the room and, of course, outside the surrounding area of the exam venues. Individual venues, all the same principles apply to individual venues, and uh, these are needed in other venues. But there is an added responsibility as the invigilator is to ensure that the student receive their reasonable accommodations and they're the only person in the student with the room. So if there's a doubt, you should always call the chief invigilator, um, because you don't want to be in a position where a student does not agree with the decision you've made and, for example, may make a complaint after exams. Circumstances that may arise and what should you do? Students may become distressed, anxious, or panicky. Um, they may request rest breaks. They may look to stand up and stretch. They may arrive with a magnifier or covered overlay. They may wear earplugs or ear protectors. They may bring food or drink into the exam. They may ask you to read part of their exam paper. They may potentially cause disruption to the other students. that's unusual but can arise, or they may disagree with something um, that arises during the exam. And what should you do? You should not panic, be calm and supportive. Allow the student to take repeated breaks and ask if they are okay, and contact the chief invigilator exams office as necessary. The, the key here is to minimize disruption to other students who may need to take a stand or a stretch break. So typically students will sit at the back of the room. If a student wishes to use earplugs, magnifiers, or overlays, etc., please allow them to do this as it facilitates the smooth running of exams. You should not panic, be calm and supportive. As I say, allow the student to take breaks, minimize the disruption to others, allow the earplugs to minimize distraction, uh, allow food and drink, support the student um, to read all parts of the exam question if asked. Most questions are short. See that this can be done outside the venue. And if you need support at any stage, contact the Chief Invigilator or the exams office, who in turn will contact the disability service. A good invigilator then turns up on time. A late start can have multiple problems, including greater student stress, less time to solve any problems that may arise, shorter rest period for students' second exam. It doesn't panic, tries to be problem solving and support rather than just saying no's. Knows or finds out what venue type they're going to, and takes students to these venues, allows students to turn on their laptop and software for the exam to ensure a good invigilator is calm and supportive and keeps watch to prevent cheating, but also provides students with disabilities and students disability service reasonable accommodations. This concludes my brief presentation. The Disability Service is located in Printing House Square, uh, new building, and our contact information is at the bottom of the screen here. If you have any questions about today's presentation, I'd encourage you to link with the Chief Regulator, or you can get in contact with the Disability Service if you have a question about disability support for students.